You have an idea. You want to tell it to the world, but you don't know where to start. That's where Anchor comes in. They have the tools for you to edit, produce, and record your idea right from your phone or computer. It's the easiest way to reach and grow your audience. They publish for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. And to top it all off, they match you with advertisers so you can earn from your passion and your wonderful idea. So tell me, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and follow your dream.
Welcome to Disruptive Adventism. My name is Katelyn Campbell, and I will be your host for this podcast. This podcast is about discussing the polemical statements and practices that are part of the Adventist fabric, which in turn shape this belief system to be unique and relevant for today's society. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So happy to have you here joining us at Disruptive Adventism, and I'm really stoked today to be sitting across from Chaplain and Michael Polite. Chap, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, to start us off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What's going on in your life?
All right. Well, a young adult Adventist who is passionate about not only our message, but the movement. I currently serve on the campus of Andrews University as the Associate Chaplain for Faith Development, as well as the lead pastor of one of the congregations here called New Life.
All right, excellent. And is there any other fun fact about you? Anything you like to do on the side for extra fun or anything?
Let me tell you, I am a boxing aficionado.
Ooh.
And a Shakespearean scholar.
Really?
Yes,
Oh.
I know that's a weird mix, but let me tell you, I don't mind contradictions one bit. And I just love the sweet science. I love boxing because the ring makes you tell the truth.
Ooh.
Yeah, the ring makes you tell the truth. And I got a chance to box amateur a little bit in college, so I know it firsthand. You cannot lie in the ring. It will bring out everything.
Wow, all right.
Then on the Shakespeare side, I love language. I love words. I love wordsmithing, and I love clever usage of language. And so that's how I met Shakespeare and fell in love with everything that has been put out. So yeah, those are the awkward idiosyncrasies of Michael Polite.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So a chaplain, amateur boxer, and a Shakespeare lover. That's magnificent. What a great combination. Well, today we're here to talk about something called Adventist Revolution, which is a movement that's recently started up in the last few months, right?
Yes.
And can you kind of tell us, first of all, what is your involvement in Adventist Revolution? And second, how did it start springing up? How did it start becoming a movement that it is now?
Yeah, great questions. Well, I currently serve as the executive director of Adventist Revolution, and it really started back in 2015. I'm here. I have the privilege of serving with some of the brightest young adult Adventist minds, definitely in our division, but also throughout the world church. Andrews University is currently the most diverse university in the United States of America. And it's because we get an influx of students from all over the world. It's beautiful to serve here. I'm also able to get a view, or let's call it a sneak peek, into what the current issues are for young professionals as it pertains to their involvement in Seventh-day Adventism. And back in 2015, there was a very landmark general conference session that many of our students were tuning into. And since then, I've seen a steady growth of complete apathy and disinterest with Adventism from many of the students. And it's because they believe that there's something fundamentally flawed with a movement that champions misogyny and turns a blind eye to other social ills such as racism, such as a lack of community involvement. So as I'm seeing that and watching it for now three and a half years, it really came to a head when it was cemented and solidified that nope, this whole women's ordination thing. Nope. When it comes to the General Conference and dispersing or decentralizing the power so that ministry can be better contextualized at the local level. Nope, we're not going to let any of that happen. I think that is and represents the last straw for young professionals, especially within the context of the North America division. But I have had the opportunity of speaking with young professionals from other divisions, and it's been amazing to hear how closely aligned the values are of millennials and Gen Zers from across continents, you know, and that's a special privilege that I have here to get a glimpse at Adventists on different continents and how they're processing things. And it's very clear that we need a revolution. We need a movement within Adventism that first motivates people to re-engage, not disengage, but re-engage with renewed fervor. But secondly, also build spaces for unconventional Adventist creatives, imaginers, visioners, humanitarians, believers, for these individuals to find a space where they can be cultivated and empowered. That needs to happen now. And I think as we move forward and with the help of the Holy Spirit are successful in building these organic spaces, I do think that we'll be able to galvanize an entire generation of Adventists that would have otherwise disengaged and left.
Wow, that's some pretty powerful stuff. And like you said, this has been brewing for a long time.
Yes.
And you've seen how people have been engaging or disengaging from what's been going on. So as you've been having these conversations with young professionals about Adventist revolution, what's been your response? How have people engaged and interacted with you and with those around you as you've been calling out this message of creating these kinds of spaces?
Wow, I think the engagement has been across the spectrum for sure, right? And I think some of the intrigue and curiosity is caused by the usage of the word revolution. And I think, and rightfully so, history and revolution seem to project, if not prophesy, that there will be bloodshed, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, right? There will be terrorism. Well, I think much like disruptive Adventism, that is attempting to reclaim a word and pull it from a negative connotation into a positive connotation, I think Adventist revolution is attempting to do the same. So currently we're in the space of intrigue, interest, suspicion. And I think there are a lot of individuals just trying to figure out, okay, where is this going to lead? What's going to be the logical outcome of this? So for the early adopters and innovators, those individuals, we have received just immense support. And we have received literally thousands of communications at one point or another on this journey where individuals are saying, we need this. We're so thankful for this. We believe that God is going to use this to bring about the necessary change. I have been looking for something like this for years. I am not a young adult. Can I be a part?
Hey, that's great.
It is great. And so we've received feedback like that from across the spectrum. That being said, we've also received feedback on the other end of the spectrum that is not so positive, that feels as if we are attempting to start a rebellion or attempting to, and I even heard some feedback from an individual who said they were speaking with a group of concerned Adventists who believe Adventist revolution is attempting to start their own denomination.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I said, man, just putting out a couple videos and people think you're trying to start a whole denomination. But I do think that points to the fact that we might have successfully captured the imaginations of people. For you to think forward to the point of you think this could become its own denomination, or for the other person who thinks forward and says, I think this will change the face of Adventism. we must use imagination to get to those conclusions. So I do believe, regardless of where you land on the spectrum, this movement, this manifesto that we have released is capturing the imaginations of Adventists, and I'm excited to see how it grows.
Well, this is fantastic. It sounds like you got kind of like this tidal wave of a movement coming through, and it's big and it's growing, and some people are kind of confused or in consternation, and you've got a bunch that are just really excited as well.
Yes.
Now, I'm wondering, for an individual, like for me, what would it look like for me to be part of Adventist Revolution?
Well, we have this amazing website, AdventistRevolution.com. And I'm just a huge fan of it, not only because I'm a part of it, but because we had some really innovative, tech-savvy individuals come together and say, no, we want this to look different than the average Adventist institutional website that we've seen. And I think they've accomplished that.
Building on that imagination.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Not telling people what should be, but maybe giving them a glimpse into what could be, you know?
Yeah.
And if you go to our website, it kind of outlines what an Adventist revolutionist is. And if an individual is saying, well, how do I join? There are a couple ways you could do that. The first is you need to go there and look at our values. We've made a concerted effort to make sure people knew we are not here to advocate for specific demographics. We are here to advocate for a set of values that we believe can be applied to any situation in life and cause us to land where Jesus landed. Now, for some people that sounds cliche. Yeah, I've heard it. Be like Jesus. No, I'm not talking about the colonized Jesus that the Romans co-opted and drained of all of his revolutionary thinking in order to pacify the masses. I'm not talking about that Jesus. I'm talking about the Jesus who was a contrarian. I'm talking about the Jesus who was non-compliant. I'm talking about the Jesus that started a revolution. We're talking about that Jesus. And when we talk about landing or being like Jesus, following Jesus, we have to understand it doesn't take too long before you start reading in the Gospels and noticing the fact that he's getting thrown out of towns. He's being ostracized by the institution of his time. He's even wrongfully executed for crimes he did not commit. That sounds like a revolutionary to me. And we believe that these values will help us chase after, if not capture, that revolutionary Jesus and bring him into contemporary times, show people what that looked like, what that sounded like, what that felt like. And so those 5 values, we believe in the gospel. So an individual needs to say, do I believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ? Do I accept that gospel? We believe in the restorative power of the Holy Spirit. That's huge, that we need to receive the transformational change offered by the Holy Spirit. Then we believe in the Advent. And that's a powerful motivator of the Adventist denomination. This belief, unashamedly so, that Jesus will return. Amen. Like, we believe that. We also believe in community. And we define that as organic biblical community. This is not a forced community that happens due to traditions, rites, and rituals being forced upon a group of people. And if they don't accept them, we will cast you out and tell you to go somewhere else. No, that's not that type of community. It's an organic community that is built upon our last and final value, and that is empathy. It is community that is fueled by empathy, the ability to place oneself in another person's shoes. And we think that if we follow these 5 values, if we embrace these 5 values would probably be a better way to say it. We think we can apply them to any situation, any demographic, any issue, any concept, and come away thinking as Jesus thought. So the first thing an individual needs to do is to look at these values, to do some soul searching and say, can I embrace these 5 values? After that, it's time to spread the message. Revolutions do not thrive because of a bottleneck, on information and sharing. No, revolutions thrive when people hear a message that resonates and then they start sharing. So on our website, we have blogs. On our website, we have paragraphs outlining our vision and our mission. We also have videos that are outlining our manifesto. We believe that if you read this and you start getting impacted, it starts resonating. The next step is to just start sharing. Finally, we have an upcoming gathering called Zeal 19. And we would hope that if all of that stuff that I previously mentioned resonates deeply, that you would attend this conference that we're calling a revolutionary gathering of believers.
All right. Zeal, let's talk about that. That's coming up in March, you said?
It is, March 22 and 23.
All right. And what's going to be happening there?
Well, we believe that we're going to be attracting unconventional creatives that have a high level of innovation and ingenuity kind of just built into their natural makeup. We think these individuals are going to come from far and wide for a conference experience that's not only asking them to listen to someone speak, but is also going to challenge them to share their own stories. We think that this organic community, this empathy, lifting up the Advent, receiving the transformational change of the Spirit, and championing the gospel of Jesus Christ, we think conversations based upon these values are going to lead to some pretty interesting, in-depth idea sharing. And that's what we want to do. We want to create a space where these ideas that are counterculture, sometimes even counter tradition, but do align with biblical relevance. We want that stuff to be shared. And we think there are a lot of people around the country, if not around the world, who are Seventh-day Adventist members in good and regular standing, but they got some unconventional ideas that they believe are going to help with the sharing of Jesus' story in their sphere of influence. And they got to fight tooth and nail every time they want to stand up and share. Somebody's trying to shoot it down. Someone's trying to tell them to get out. Someone's trying to ostracize them. Well, what if there was a space where people were cultivated instead? And we think that cultivation and nurture is going to happen for unconventional Adventists at Zeal 19.
All right. That's magnificent. So what I'm hearing is this is not a place for the passive. This is a place for people who are ready to see some change and be some change in the world and in Adventism.
Correct. I mean, even the title for our conference, Zeal, it's being based upon Psalm 69:9, where David says, "Zeal for thine house has consumed me, and those that have reproached you, those reproaches have fallen upon me." Like David is talking personally about not being passive anymore, about what's going on specifically in God's house. Jesus in John 2:17, the Bible says he cleanses the temple. He kicks people out. He gets a little bit aggressive. God forbid we get aggressive, right? Jesus gets aggressive. And then it says that the disciples saw it and remembered the words of the psalmist. This is John 2:17. And they remembered the words of the psalmist, "Zeal for thine house has consumed me." And we think it is a-okay to get passionate and expressive, even demonstrative about reclaiming God's house for what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place that is erected for the healing of the nations, for prayer, for all generations, people, creeds, tongues, to be able to come and find a community that's willing to cover them, to meet their needs, to win their confidence, as well as just to mingle, desiring their good. And then after we've done all that and built relationships, we can say, "Now come follow me." And we think that this zeal idea that is not only championed by David, but was utilized by Christ to fuel his activism at the temple on that day. We think that that is what we need to have as well within the Adventist church, No more of this passive stuff to where we are afraid of controversy. Controversy brings change. We see that in the life of Jesus. He did some controversial stuff and he changed the world. We think he wants to invite us into the same movement.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Now you mentioned fear. And as you talked about, there's some people who are a little unsure when they hear Adventist Revolution. And we tend to fear things that we don't understand. We also tend to fear change. And what I'm hearing from you is a lot of change, a lot of positive, necessary, life-giving change. What do you do when you engage with people, or you try to engage with people who are kind of stuck in this fear mindset, or are struggling to see how change could be a positive direction to move?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what you're really asking is, how do we call a person into a place of courage? It's not easy, especially since religion has a way of pacifying people.
Ooh.
Yeah, religion has a way. As a matter of fact, the word religion comes from, its etymology is traced all the way back to a word that means to bind. So if we look at religion as some type of systematic process of binding, to set that free is going to be difficult, especially within a religious context. So I do want to suggest, first and foremost, it is no easy task. But what I do believe is true about life, and specifically the psychology of humans, when staying the same, when the prospect of staying the same becomes more painful than the possible consequences that could come as a result of the change, people start moving in very revolutionary ways, right?
True.
They take revolutionary steps to change their life. They'll move to a different country. They'll lose 150 pounds. They'll stop eating anything that comes from an animal and go straight vegan. You know, these are revolutionary steps that people are taking. And usually it's incited by the prospect of staying the same is so painful and causes such anxiety and desperation that you finally get to the point where you say, I have nothing to lose. If I stay the same, I'm going to hate my life. So I might as well just go for it and see if something good happens. I think that's where Adventists need to get. I think we have relegated change to subcommittees, to Robert's Rules of Order, to constituency sessions. It hasn't worked. And many people have gotten to a place where they're like, I can't take it anymore. If this doesn't change, I can't stay. And what Adventist Revolution is inviting people to consider is, no, maybe it won't change if you don't move.
Ooh. Yeah.
You know, and when we say move, we're not talking about leave. We're talking about come a little bit closer, get more involved, engage at a higher level of frequency, consistency, be demonstrative, share your fervor, let people know that this is my denomination too. You know, that this denomination, this movement is not owned by anyone except for Jesus. That's the only one who owns it. So everyone else in it are one of his kids. So we are all heirs to the throne, according to Titus. Therefore, we have equal stake in the inheritance, you know, and I just believe if Jesus is the head and he has invited all of us to serve, we have equal part in this thing. And so Adventist Revolution is trying to say, here's a way. Here's an ideology. Here's a movement that is trying to fuel people's re-engagement so that we can turn this thing into something that is not only edifying for us, but primarily edifying for the rest of our peers who are like us.
Amen. That's beautiful. I love that. I love that. Now, as we're kind of wrapping up our time together here, first of all, I want to recommend, if you haven't already checked out the website, make sure that you hit it up, make sure you see what's going on. Chaplain Polite mentioned there's some videos that have been kind of circulating. Maybe you've seen them on Facebook. If not, hit up the website. Be sure that you check it out there. And I know in one of the videos you talk about certain action steps that people can take. Can you kind of speak to that? What are some action steps for the people who want to be a part of this movement?
Yeah, we think one action step is, and I've said it many times, I'll say it again, repetition deepens the impression. It is re-engage. You know, that's the first step. You have to get into your mind that I'm no longer going to sit on the sidelines and critique, but I'm going to get into the game and actively push for change. I'm going to invite my sphere of influence to come with me and say, we can change this for the better. So let's go get it. You know, that's the first step. The second step is you have to make up in your mind that all social, societal ills that still perpetuate themselves within Adventism must be destroyed. Utterly destroyed. There cannot be one stone left on another stone. When it comes to the unequal treatment of women, when it comes to the perpetuation of white privilege and white supremacy within Adventism, that must stop. There are many societal ills that have been able to creep in and poison our Adventist message, and we have to separate ourselves from that. When it comes to creative ideas, you have to be a person that becomes a safe space where an individual can ask a critical question that would cause us to think different and not be derided for that, not be persecuted for that. We need to create these safe spaces. And then finally, we need to monitor how we invest our resources. And I'm talking about financial resources. I think what's happening is a lot of people are not giving in Adventism, especially in our generation. A lot of people are not giving because they're looking up into the hierarchy and saying, I don't like what's going on up there. Well, what about your local community? You know, what about putting some dollars and cents on a line item at your local church that's going to help you start a humanitarian effort, a passion project that's going to help you reach certain people that are in need? We need to start investing more and pushing relevant ministry in our local churches. So I think if you follow those steps, if you're a person that says, listen, I'm going to re-engage, I'm going to combat and become an activist against the societal ills that have crept into my church, I'm going to become a safe space for idea sharing and counterintuitive thinking. And then I am going to invest in relevant ministry at my local church, because that has nothing to do with the general conference, has nothing to do with a union, doesn't even have anything to do with your local conference. You can invest in the work of your local church and watch your community, your faith community, change the lives of people who are right next door. And I'll kind of end with this on this point. It is important to me that we redefine what missions are in Adventism. For some reason within Adventism, it's sad but true. When I say missions, most Adventists think somewhere overseas. Yeah. Right? So I say we need to serve and we need to support the mission. They think of some distant land.
Send those dollars to some hut off in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm saying to myself, wait a second. Why are we so hyper actively pursuing the hungry woman across the sea when there are 4 hungry women across the street? Why are we trying to support the gentlemen across a continent, but we're not trying to support the gentleman across town? Like, to me, that is totally against the parable of the Good Samaritan. The question that started that parable is, who's my neighbor? Jesus answered it. It's the person you pass by every day that needs your help. That's your first responsibility. And so a lot of our local churches have been trying to feed this vision of some globalized mission somewhere off in the distance, tens of thousands of miles away, when in actuality, there are poor people, there are needs, there are programs, there are health clinics that need to be built right in your community. And so Adventist Revolution is excited about trying to rebrand how we look at missions as not something across the sea, but something that's across the street.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right. Well, Thank you so much for meeting with me today and telling us what exciting things are happening, what's brewing in our denomination. As I heard you talking, as I hear what you're saying, I am very encouraged. I'm excited. I'm excited to see the potential future. I'm excited to see not even just the potential future, but what's going to happen today. Mm-hmm. How can my fellow friends, my peers, how can I be involved in change today? And so if you're listening to this and this is speaking to you, if you're feeling the Spirit move in your heart now, join the revolution. Be a part of this. Engage. Check out, what's the website one more time that they can go to?
AdventistRevolution.com.
AdventistRevolution.com. If you feel the Spirit moving in you, start in your own neighborhood, start in your own home, start in your own heart. You want to connect to this bigger community that's growing, check out the website. If you're interested in gathering, being a part of this big community, coming up March 22, 23, want to come to Zeal, make sure that you hop on that. I hear the tickets are pretty reasonable. Is that right?
Yeah, only $35 per person for 2 days.
All right. And that's happening where?
In Indianapolis, at the Builtwell Event Center.
All right, awesome. Come out. It sounds like it's going to be a fantastic and edifying and just exciting experience. Now, Chaplain Polite, as tradition here at Disruptive Adventism, we like to give you the final word. So what would you like to leave us with today?
Well, first I want to say just thank you for having me. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed the sharing, but I've also enjoyed just the good vibes I'm feeling during our time that we've shared, just the support and the encouragement. So I want to thank you for that. As a final word, I would just ask all who are listening to consider the fact that God, specifically Jesus, has 2 names. Now, some would say, no, he has more than 2. The Bible speaks like way more than 2. Okay, touche to you all. But we're going to hone in specifically on Revelations chapter 4 and 5, where he's called 2 things specifically. We are familiar with the first I want to mention, the Lamb that was slain. We hear that all of the time. But for some reason, we miss the fact that that's actually the second thing that the angels call Jesus, the Lamb that was slain. The first thing they call him is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And I think within our religious context, we've talked a lot about the Lamb that was slain, being lamb-like, saying Jesus did not say a mumbling word. We portray Jesus as a pacifist who was simply interested in spiritual things that were not of our planet and of our dimension. I reject that 100% because he's also the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And when he walked on this planet, he was as interested in the well-being of human beings. He was as interested in the societal ills that have led to oppression. His first sermon, he declared, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." Why? To open up portals into the mystery and the esoteric things of our world? No. He said to give sight to the blind, to set at liberty the oppressed people, to heal broken hearts. He is the icon of all icons, of a revolutionary who roared. Jesus, while he was on this planet, he roared. He just didn't lay down like a lamb to be sacrificed. It was actually his roaring that led him to be sacrificed. If he was a quiet lamb, no one would have been concerned about him. But he roared. And I think it's time for a generation of Adventists to stand up and begin to roar, not taking or tolerating the co-opting of the Advent message by those who would simply use it to push forward an agenda of colonizing the whole world and getting people to submit to our cultural perspectives. That's not what Jesus came to start. He came to start a revolution. To ignite people to have influence in their sphere of influence. And I am excited about not only meeting the Jesus that roars, but sharing that Jesus with others.
You've been listening to Disruptive Adventism. We hope that today's topic helped you to think and change something about your practices, about your faith, about your Adventism. If you want to subscribe, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast. We'll be there. And make sure to give us a review if you like what you're listening to. If you want to support, make sure to go to patreon.com/disruptiveadventism. It helps us pay our bills and produce the content that you're listening to. And if you want to socialize, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram or on Twitter, and hit us up whenever you need anything. We'll be there to support you. Thank you for listening today. We hope you join us next time. And as always, we invite you to be disruptive.